Hi, my name is Olivia Weiss, and I chose to read the book Educated by Tara Westover. I chose this book because a friend recommended it to me. I did not think I would like this book, but it was actually very good. So, this book, Educated by Tara Westover, is a autobiography on the life of Tara, the author, and it starts off from the stories of Tara's first memories as a child and how her life was around the estimated age of 7 years old. Tara grew up in a rural Idaho on the edge of a mountain near Buck's Peak. Since the day she was born, Mormonism would be forced upon her very strictly, mainly by her father, who acted as the man of the house. The Westover family lived off the grid with 5 boys: Tony, Sean, Tyler, Luke, and Richard, and then 2 girls, Audrey and Tara. And Tara was the youngest of 7 children and the only one who was not enrolled in school at some point in her life by her parents. Tara's father, who was forceful along with bipolar, owned a scrapyard where Tara and her siblings would spend most of their days working for their father and risking their lives at some point trying to do a risky task. Her father believed that the government system was all wrong, public education was bad, and the medical system was harmful. He would go in phases of preparation for the world to end, collecting and storing guns, food, water, natural medicines, and more in a hideout place for the family in case the day would come. Her mother, who was a midwife and herbalist, fell under the force of her husband and often sided with him and her abusive son, Sean, which we will speak of more later. Tara Westover, who had never stepped in a classroom before, decided at the young age of 17 to take the ACT in hope of getting into BYU. She got in and struggled her first year with classes, social life, and basic hygiene. She would later get help from her professors in the BYU community, and from then on, she thrived. Tara graduated from BYU and got a scholarship that sent her to the University of Cambridge, where she would earn a PhD in history and later become famous for her story of starting from no school experience and growing in her academic success. Throughout her years in college, her dad disapproved of her ways. He cut her off and told the rest of the family that she was a crazy person, hoping that they would disapprove of her as well. Tara, affected by this, doubted herself and got in a slump. But she overcame the struggles and eventually graduated and earned herself a PhD and a path in life. One thing I liked about this book was how fierce Tara was in the scenes that she was describing the abuse she went through. While writing her book, Tara Westover did not hold back on details, especially in parts when she described accidents that happened in the scrapyard, such as her brother Luke's burn, her dad's burn, and Sean's fall. As I mentioned in the summary, Tara had an older brother, 10 years to be exact, and Sean was his name. He was physically and mentally abusive to Tara, Tara's older sister, Audrey, and the girlfriends he had, along with his wife, Emily, who will show up later in the book. One scene that has to do with Sean is on page 189 when Tara has her boyfriend, Charles, over for Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going to read out of this book a quote from this passage. "It happened so quickly. I don't know how he got me to the floor, but again, I was on my back and he was on top of me. He demanded that I apologize for breaking the plate. I whispered the apology, quietly, so Charles wouldn't hear me. But this enraged Sean. He grabbed a fistful of my hair, again near the scalp for leverage, and yanked me upright, then dragged me toward the bathroom." Her father and Sean did not like Charles because he kept Tara out of the house and started teaching her the normal ways of the world. At dinner, Sean had one of his usual episodes of manipulating Tara into doing something wrong and making her apologize. Sean pinned Tara to the floor and made breathless and motionless Tara apologize. But Tara, and the fierce girl that she was, did not want to apologize for doing nothing and be embarrassed in front of Charles. Sean dragged Tara by her hair to the bathroom and dunked her in the toilet, once again telling her to apologize. Charles stood in shock, not knowing what to do because Tara was explaining that it was just a game. After seeing this, Charles left and called Tara later that night asking to meet. Tara and Charles broke up that night because Charles realized he couldn't save Tara from, in her words, normal but realistically abusive situation. The reason why this scene is something I like about the book is because it gives the readers a vision on Tara's real life and what she lived through. It proved to me that even on my worst days and some bad situations I may go through are nothing compared to what abuse Tara lived through for so many years and how fierce she was through it, holding her own and standing her ground. One of my favorite passages from the book Educated is on page 207, and I'm going to read it. "I had $1,000 in my bank account. It felt strange just to think that, let alone say it. $1,000 extra that I did not immediately need. It took weeks for me to come to terms with this fact, but as I did, I began to experience the most powerful advantage of money, the ability to think of things besides money. My professors came into focus, suddenly and sharply. It was as if before the grant I had been looking at them through a blurred lens. My textbooks began to make sense, and I found myself doing more than the required reading. I pulled this passage from the middle of the book when Tara was still attending BYU and she was struggling with a bad toothache that she did not have the money to pay for to get it fixed. She was $100 short of paying her rent and she could not buy textbooks and she was left penniless and hopeless. Her and her church bishop had been meeting every Sunday and he advised her to apply for a grant and be able to pay off all these necessities. She was not one to take free money from the government, but her roommate Robin convinced her she needed it. Once she got the grant, she thought it was a mistake with how much they sent her. She said she only needed $1,400 and they sent her $4,000. She had so much extra money and she felt free once again, being able to actually focus on her classes. I like this passage because it makes me smile thinking about how Tara, with no help from her family, finally got some money to survive in her semester at college. I liked how she viewed money as very scarce, and it reminded me to never take my free money for granted, along with never taking it for granted that my parents pay for mainly everything I have. The second passage that I liked is on page 304. Everything I had worked for all my years of study had been to purchase for myself this one privilege, to see and experience more truths than those given to me by my father, and to use those truths to construct my own mind. I had come to believe that the ability to evaluate many ideas, many histories, many points of view was at the heart of what it meant to create oneself. If I yielded now, I would lose more than an argument. I would lose custody of my own mind. This was the price I was being asked to pay. I understood that now. Previous to this passage, Tara's parents had paid her an unexpected visit to Harvard, where she was attending school, and they were all staying together in her crammed dorm room. The purpose of their visit was to cast away demons in Tara and help her say yes to accepting to be reborn. Tara's father tried to perform the spiritual act on her, but she decided against it for her own sanity and future. Her father was astonished by this and immediately told Tara's mother to start packing their bags and that they were leaving. They were out the door within 5 minutes, and since that day, Tara rarely spoke to any of them and the rest of her family because her dad told the rest of the family that she was possessed by demons. I like this odd passage because I was proud of Tara for doing what she did and standing her ground, saying no to her father. I liked this passage because, in my opinion, it was a turning point in the book where Tara turned her back on all the facts that she knew and to be true growing up with. I like how Westover gave a in-depth description of what was going on in her head at that moment in the dorm room, knowing very well that whatever path she chose, they had both held a completely opposite future. One example of a strong writer's move made by Westover is the way she brings the scenes she lived through to life for the readers and helps the readers create a vivid image of what is going on in the book as if it was a movie in their head. The readers can do this because of the details such as noises, imagery, and comparisons Westover adds into her writing. For example, on page 69, the book reads, I ran outside and saw Luke hobbling across the grass. He screamed for mother, then collapsed. That's when I saw the jeans on his left leg were gone, melted away. Parts of the leg were livid, red, and bloody. Others were bleached and dead. Papery ropes of skin wrapped delicately around his thigh and down his calf, like wax dripping from a cheap candle. His eyes rolled back in his head. Some context of what was happening previous to the situation is Luke had been outside in the scrapyard working on cars with their dad, and he had spilled gasoline on his work clothes and ran back to the house, caught on fire with clothes he could not get off. 10-year-old Tara was unsure of what had actually happened on the mountain, but she later understood that her dad had stayed back to put out the fire Luke was spreading all throughout the dry grass. Tara was Luke's first responder and tried her best to help him with his severe burn. The reason why this is one of Westover's strong writer's moves is because she describes the situation very specifically and uses phrases such as papery ropes of skin. This gives the reader, myself, a gross image of burnt skin being dragged along. The writer's move is very effective here because it makes the reader want to keep reading to get the full movie playing in their head as the situation of the story increases. This book taught me that no matter what background someone comes from or what they are taught in their life growing up, a person can always make an opportunity for themselves and find a way out of the mess that they once were in, even if that takes years and years to get to. We all grow up and get older day by day, and with that comes more opportunities as you get older and gain knowledge. Many, but not all, people have a great community and professors that love and care about them and want them to thrive. Tara had this, and she eventually got a breath of fresh air, disconnected from her father, and was able to pave her own individual path. Now, with the disconnection comes a bittersweet feeling because family was so important to Tara, but Tara realized the negative impact her family was having on her, and she knew if she stayed there would be no educated future for her. A passage that goes in hand with this is Westover's very last words of her book on page 329. That night, I called on her, and she didn't answer. She left me. She stayed in the mirror. The decisions I made after that moment were not the ones she would have made. They were the choices of a changed person, a new self. You could call this selfhood many things: transformation, metamorphosis, falsity, betrayal. I call it education. Some context previous to this passage is Tara was dealing with an overflowing memories and grief of the mountain and family that she had grown up with and lost in a way, because she was choosing a path that she built for herself over them, which her father and some siblings did not approve of. She realized the only way she could live at peace is if she could create two different versions of herself: the girl that obeyed her father and lived under his ways, which was the girl in the mirror that she was talking about that stayed in the mirror, and the woman who loved learning and wanted her own life with freedom.